All right, so I know people wanted more detail on the M122 Eaton blower from a GT500 to a 5.3 liter or any other LS engine. So I've got the blower off, it's sitting over there, and I just wanted to show you exactly how this works. So I had another guy ask me on Facebook Messenger at the Divine Speed Team page. He wanted to know my opinion on it, and the blower's great. It's a lot of fun on the street. It's a lot more fun on the street than a turbo, in my opinion. So I say that, and here you are. You see me switching back over to a turbo. So I'm doing that because I want to actually compete with this car in some of the racing classes at the track. The blower is not fast enough to be competitive. That's my opinion, and probably all my setup where I'm doing it wrong. So let's go step by step on where I started on it. So here we have a Holley high ram with just the Holley fuel rails. I think they're like Deca 60-pound injectors or something. I don't know. I'm running a couple of 340 liter per hour pumps in the back. I don't even need both of them. I think one of them was just fine. So here's the intercooler. It's a Tick Performance, and I'll show you what that looks like underneath. All right. You don't need to run this. It's better if you did, but you don't need to have it. I've had it on there and never did take the time to get it plumbed up. So here is my fittings on the intercooler. All right. If you're not running it, that's fine. The bolt pattern remains the same on your adapter plate for the Eaton. Now I made this, and I have the 3D drawings. You can have any shop cut this out. Yeah, I just don't know what it's going to cost. Material costs went way up, so I don't know what a plate like this costs anymore to have made, and I don't know that it has to be this thick. So I used CAD at home to figure out what my bolt pattern should be. So I actually measured each hole on the bolt pattern on the Holley intake and created a 3D model of just this plate, a rectangle plate. And you can use whatever CAD that you're used to using. Mastercam Home Learning Edition is what I used. You can use Fusion. It's free. You can actually make parts with Fusion, the free version of it. Mastercam you cannot. I don't know about SolidWorks or Creo. Those are two other good ones that a lot of people are used to using. But so I started with the bolt pattern of the intake first, and then I set the blower on top of the intake to try to figure out the spacing. Like, where am I going to put this blower? Well, here's the whole hiccup in this deal. This outlet that all your air is coming through on the bottom side of the blower is all the way as far forward as it can go on the blower. So that screws up a lot of things. So to kind of fight that, get around that, the blower pulley, I actually pulled it off with a set of gear pullers. Don't do that. You end up bending the pulley. See what I mean? And that started tearing up belts, or contributed to tearing up belts. And I pressed it back on. I just pressed it back on flush from the inside. I don't know if you can see inside there. And you press it back on with a power. Let's see, it's a power steering pulley kit you can use to press it back on. So that's no big deal. The puller, on the other hand, I think it's quite a bit of money if you actually go out and buy a puller. This one here, since I bent it, I could have pulled it out, an 1/8 inch or whatever the thickness of those ribs are, and it probably would have been fine. But instead, I chose to run it the way it is, and you can see that very outside rib is bent in, so it was fraying the outside of the belt. So I flipped the pulley around, and I was able to, see if I can flip this thing around without hurting myself here. And I was able to get my spacing on my bolt pattern. So the bolt pattern of the M122, you don't have to measure it, you don't have to guess at it. Let's see. One side, the holes are actually in line, and I did that just for simplicity. It's this side here. This side, they're a little bit staggered. But I found the model for the M122 bolt pattern on GrabCAD. So if you're used to using any kind of CAD system, go on GrabCAD, steal a step file, and put it on this model. All right. If I could make these, I would. I just can't. So, anyhow. The bypass valve, mine is gone. The reason mine is gone is because the diaphragm inside of it was ruptured. So to get the bypass valve to stay shut, I took, trying to hold this and do whatever. So this is the part that the bypass valve attaches to, or this is the stop on it, and it's supposed to be on the other side of this threads on that bolt. I actually took a pair of pliers and bent it around to hook it to keep the bypass valve from opening. Why is the bypass valve important? Well, when you're cruising around idling in town or whatever, the blower's still turning. It's still going to make pressure. When you're making pressure, it makes heat, and this thing makes a lot of heat. So the bypass valve opens up and allows some of that air to bypass and get away from the blower. And so mine is shut. The thing was making a lot of heat. It's very inefficient, really. So, all right, moving on. This elbow, this is a factory Ford elbow. Make no changes to it. This plate here is just an adapter plate that I made real quick. I just put the bolt pattern in it for the elbow, the bolt pattern in it for the LT1 throttle body, which you use whatever throttle body you want. It's funny because these holes in in this axis is the same bolt pattern as the Ford bolt pattern. So do what you can with that. And then the vacuum fittings and whatever. The vacuum fittings, let's see, this one, I think there was one here. I pulled it out, and I think I tapped it, put a pipe plug in it. Same with this one. I think this one here, I had the vacuum line for the bypass valve going here because it's got to have a vacuum source. So that's where it was, and when I took the bypass valve diaphragm off, I just capped that off. This is a hole I put in there for a nitrous nozzle, and it didn't work out, so I just plugged it. This nozzle is actually for water meth injection, and it worked. If you spray water on it, it cools the blower down to 130, like instantly. That's about as cool as you're gonna see it get. So I guess it's better than nothing. All right. I don't remember what was here. I think this has something to do with the EGR system. I just pipe thread tapped that hole and plugged it off. And these two, I could have pulled them out, but just didn't do it. I just plugged them, capped them off, whatever. So that's that. The wiring, I just used the factory wiring for the, well, this is a Holley Terminator system on this car, but you can use your factory wiring and just make it reach the throttle body. It's better off if you use a GM throttle body and probably a cable drive. It's just easier. Now this is kind of a weird deal. I just took a cable bracket, bolted it here to the firewall, and it worked out. Amazingly, it worked out really well. I was surprised how well it worked out. So then the pulley system is a kind of a joke, but it is what it is. So to get belt wrap, the best thing I can do is wrap it from the power steering pump up around the backside of this pulley to the alternator, up to the blower, back down to this pulley, under the radiator hose to a manual tensioner, and you want to run a manual tensioner, and then back down to the crank around the water pump, then back to the power steering pump. So there's that, and that's really about it. The tuning part of it, the tuning side of it is not real, like a lot different from compared to a turbo. You're running a, maybe a 2-bar map sensor. So you do that, and then what else? Your accelerator, your tip in for your accelerator, your what do they call it? Accelerator pump speed or whatever. Forget what they call it on Holly, but you add a lot more fuel. Otherwise, this thing will be stumbling every time you hit the gas, and you don't want that. I mean, it runs the car. It actually runs the engine lean for a split second, and obviously you don't want that. And it stumbles, So you keep adding fuel. You got to add quite a bit, because you have to think this blower is making power or making pressure the whole time. So as soon as you get into the throttle, like crack it open, this thing is making 9 pounds of boost. So you've got to have that fuel there just as soon as you hit that throttle. So like I said, let's talk about the inefficiency of it. So it made 9 pounds of boost right off idle, but as you're going down the track, the thing would start running out of air. I blame a lot of that on the throttle body and the fact that it's making a lot of heat. This thing would warm way up. I've seen it 300 degrees before, and I was running that on a factory 5.3 with gapped rings on E85. I don't know how else it lived other than having it on E85. So as you're going down the track, this thing would ease off on pressure. It'd get down to like 7 or 6 pounds. Well, that's no fun. But this car ran a 712 in the 8th through a turbo 400 and a 456 rear gear. So, and it still weighed, with me in it, you're looking at 3,700 pounds roughly. So, I don't know what kind of power it is. Is it 450, 500 horse? Maybe, possibly, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, it's a lot of fun on the street. It turns a lot of heads. I mean, it sticks out way above where the hood is, and it's a lot of fun. So if you're wanting to do this, don't deter yourselves from doing this. I don't want you to not want to do this after this video. I'm just straight telling you, this is my experience, and these are the facts based on my experience. So I don't know what else to add. There really wasn't much to it. Belt length, I think it was, the belts I was running, I think 81, 82 inches, something like that. This pulley, I added a metric piece of all thread here to add a pulley, and I don't even remember what that's from. And then this pulley here was, I think, this pulley, gosh, I don't remember. It's bigger than what the factory pulley was, I think. I don't remember. You're gonna have to come up with your own pulley setup because it's a pain, but once you get the blower on there and get it lined up the best you can, and I eyeballed it. I mean, find you a yardstick or something and try to get the blower lined up with the pulley. The good thing is, if it doesn't line up perfect, you can always pull that blower pulley out to match up with your belt. So you got that going for you. I think that's it. There wasn't any like a mass amount of drama with this thing other than fighting belts, which that was my own fault, I think. And tuning, I learned a lot on tuning it with the Holley Terminator. Would have been a lot more difficult with the EFI Live. I fought with the EFI Live, and EFI Live works good. I've never used HP tuners, so I don't know what that's like. But the Holley Terminator was really probably the best investment overall. Makes me tuning a lot faster. So I spend a lot less time tuning, more time driving and, you know, making tire smoke and whatever. So, all right, see ya.